All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about the 147-pound division. And what I'm hearing is that Errol Spence Jr. will be forced into a Keith Thurman fight. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to talk about the welterweight divisions, all things welterweight. If you guys are familiar with this channel, you know that is my favorite weight class. There's a lot of terrific fights that could be made in that division, a lot that people are really looking forward to and hoping take place, like Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Crawford, Jaron Boots Ennis against whoever he's going to fight next, right? All these type of fights. Let me not leave out the great Terrence Crawford fighting whatever his next fight is going to be. You got young guys like Virgil Ortiz coming up, and then you got a lot of old heads who still have solid fan bases like Keith Thurman. I do believe Sean Porter's is retired, but just a very, very good weight division from top to bottom. We're going to talk about that, and what I think is I'm being told, and what I do agree with, is something that's probably inevitable coming up next in the division. Before I do that, though, let me thank you for coming to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And also support the sponsor for this video, busr.ag/Fanon. If you're going to wager on the Super Bowl, make sure you go there. You can see the information down here in the graphics for the video. If you bet $1, you'll be entered into a contest where you may win $10,000. So make sure you guys go check out that and use the promotional code Fanon. All right, so Errol Spence Jr., everybody wants the Errol Spence Jr. Terrence Crawford fight. And as we know, there's been a lot of hurdles to the fight, continue to be a lot of hurdles to the fight. And one of the hurdles to the fight is that it does not appear as if the PBC finds that, thinks that the fight is really financially viable based on how much Terrence Crawford is going to want to earn. My understanding is, and this is something that was originally leaked by Keith Thurman, but since that point in time was confirmed with the source that I have, was that and by the WBC itself, is that the WBC has made the Keith Thurman versus Mario Barrios fight an eliminator fight to become a mandatory for Errol Spence Jr. and the WBC. Now, when this news came out, the WBC came out and said, hold on, and this was shared by Keith Thurman, came out and said, hold on, it's not a final eliminator, and as that you become the mandatory as soon as you win the fight. It is a title eliminator, which means it moves you up in the rankings and it puts you in a position of becoming a mandatory. What my understanding is from the people that I spoke to is that they are playing semantics in this particular issue, in this particular circumstance, and that the intention is that they are going to make a fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman for a WBC championship, and that they are going to more than likely do that by naming Keith Thurman a mandatory. There is not a plan, according to my sources, for these guys to have another WBC title eliminator that would allow where the winner of Keith Thurman and Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios fight the winner of some other fight. Their intention is with Keith Thurman pretty much to be a big money pay-per-view for Errol Spence Jr. Now, I know that that is the plan. That does not mean that it is necessary. Well, I can't tell you I know for certain that that's the plan. That's what I'm hearing is the plan. But with Errol Spence Jr., it is known that Errol Spence Jr. said that he is not going to be willing to fight Keith Thurman. He is upset, has been upset for a while that Keith Thurman ducked him when Keith Thurman was the WBC and the WBA champion. And he said, look, now that you're hunting me, I'm going to do you the same way you did. Now that you're hunting me, I'm going to do you the same way you did me, and I'm not interested in that fight. Now, if that is the case, then all of that means more than likely is that Errol Spence Jr. is going to have to vacate those belts and go to 154 pounds to fight at 154 pounds. If it is actually mandated that he fights Keith Thurman in a fight and he doesn't do it, he will be stripped of his title. And I doubt very much that Errol Spence Jr. is going to want to get stripped of his title. So he's either going to do one thing or the other. He's going to fight Keith Thurman, or he's going to move up in weight to 154 pounds, which is an inevitable move for him because, and he's stated that he's here for a good time, not a long time. And there's also been other rumblings that he was going to be moving up to 154 pretty soon, that he wanted to get in 2022, he wanted to get, this season, he wanted to get all of the belts, and then he wants to move up to 154. It has been a difficult time for Errol Spence to make weight at 154. He's been there for several years, and they feel like, and a lot of boxing fans feel that he'll be stronger at 154 pounds. That move from 147 to 154 is also more reasonable now because Jermell Charlo, who is a stablemate of Errol Spence Jr., has his rematch with George Castano. And so after that fight with George Castano, he's in the position to move up after being an undisputed champion to 160 pounds and fight as a mandatory for any of those titles up there at 160 pounds, provided he gets past Brian Castano. But even if he didn't get past Brian Castano, in some way Brian Castano wins that fight, Jermell Charlo is in negotiations to move to 168 for a Canelo Alvarez fight. If not that, a David Benavidez fight. So Jermell can wind up moving up to 160 pounds regardless. Now, I know that there is a lot of people, because when we talked about this subject before, people are really very much harping on the fact that Errol Spence Jr. says that he didn't want to fight Keith Thurman. But I think that it would be naive to overlook the fact that the PBC, Al Heyman, and those guys have a bunch of fighters, and they have to get fights for a lot of different fighters, and they are going to position fighters in order to get championship shots. And when they have a guy that they believe, they can build and they can make money off of, they're going to do things for that fighter. And Keith Thurman is one of those guys. Keith Thurman was at a certain point a popular fighter, an upcoming fighter for the PBC, and he has a bigger name than is, with the exception of Jaron Ennis and Jaron Ennis's ability at 147 pounds. Keith Thurman is probably, with the PBC, the most viable guy at 147 to get championships. So the idea of having him late in his career get another pay-per-view against Errol Spence Jr. for an in-house fight, I think is probably very, very attractive to these guys. And they were pushing that through the WBC. The WBC again never said that they were not going to order a fight between Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr. What they said was that this was not a final eliminator, it's a title eliminator, and Keith Thurman does not become mandatory just by the virtue of winning that fight. But if you're familiar with Mauricio Suleiman and the WBC, those guys definitely know how to talk and speak in a way where they leave themselves a lot of different avenues to do what they want to do. And my understanding is that fight is what the PBC thinks will be a viable pay-per-view at the end of this year, and that is how these guys are going to try to move their fighters going into 2022, 2023. There's also, the issue of Jaron Ennis, where Jaron Ennis is not, I don't believe he, technically speaking, is a PBC fighter, but he does fight on networks that are contracted with the PBC and fights on a lot of PBC cards. So, there's going to be a need to make space for Jaron Ennis at 147 pounds. And it may very well be that the ultimate fight that you get with Errol Spence Jr. is the Jaron Ennis fight at 154, or maybe a Terrence Crawford-Jaron Ennis fight at 147. But anyway, just wanted to update you guys on that and what I heard regarding that. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.